In 1967, these comments from the works of Saadia Jayan, expressing his profound grief about Islamization, were presented and highlighted in a fascinating essay by the historian Abraham Polak, the founder of the Department of Middle Eastern and African History at Tel Aviv University. Soon after Israel seized the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, this scholar thought that the conquered population would become an insoluble problem for the state, and cautiously brought up the vexed issue of the origin of the Arabs of the land of Israel. Polak, a confirmed Zionist, was a bold student of Islam, and he disliked unjustifiable suppressions of memory, as we shall see in the next chapter. Since no one was willing to talk about those who did forsake the Holy Covenant, those Ishmaelites in Jerusalem, or those enemies of Israel who turned away from the Lord, he took the almost impossible mission upon himself. His important essay did not argue that all Palestinians were the direct or exclusive descendants of the Judeans. As a serious historian, he knew that over thousands or even hundreds of years almost any population, especially in such geographic junctions as the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean, mingles with its neighbors, its captives or its conquerors. Greeks, Persians, Arabs, Egyptians and Crusaders had all come to the country and always mingled and integrated with the local population. Polak assumed that there was considerable likelihood that Judeans did convert to Islam, meaning that there was a demographic continuity in the agrarian people of the land from antiquity to our time, and that this should be the subject of a legitimate scientific study. But as we know, what history did not wish to relate, it omitted. No university or other research institution responded to Polak's challenge, and no funds or students were assigned to the problematic subject. Bold as he was, Polak was not the first to raise the issue of mass Islamization, and he pointed this out in his introduction. In the early days of Zionist settlement, before the rise of Palestinian nationalism, the idea that the bulk of the local population descended from the Judeans was accepted by a good many Israel. Belkind, for example, one of the first Zionists who settled in Palestine in 1882, and a leading figure in the Small Bila movement, always believed in the close historical connection between the country's ancient inhabitants and the peasantry of his own day. Before he died, he summed up his thinking on the subject in a small book, which included all the controversial assumptions that would later be erased from national historiography. The historians are accustomed to say that after the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus, the Jews were scattered all over the world and no longer inhabited their country. But this, too, is a historical error which must be removed and the true facts discovered. Belkind argued that the subsequent uprisings, from the Bar Kokhba revolt to the insurgents in Galilee in the early 7th century, indicated that most of the Judeans continued to live in the country for a long time. The land was abandoned by the upper strata, the scholars, the Torah men, to whom the religion came before the country, he wrote. Perhaps, too, so did many of the mobile urban people. But the tillers of the soil remained attached to their land. Many findings reinforced this historical conclusion.